This morning we're going to talk about death. This is a topic which we may need more than five minutes for, but it's the Course tells us it's the central theme in the ego's thought system, or the central concept. It's a phenomenon that everyone in this world deals with, whether it's the death of loved ones, death of an idea sometimes, and certainly our own personal death. And it's clearly an extremely important topic because probably no other topic goes more to the heart of the confusion of form and content, body and mind. In fact, the third obstacle to peace in chapter 19 is the attraction of death. And it's in that discussion that Jesus makes a very, very important statement where he says, do not confuse symbol with source. And he's speaking very, very specifically there about death. The symbol would be the death of the body, and the source would be the concept of death that is the integral or the foundational part, one could say, of the ego thought system. And Jesus is cautioning us against confusing symbol with source, body and mind, form with content. Namely, the issue is not the death of the body, because how could what does not live die? In other words, the body, as we're told repeatedly in many different ways, doesn't die. It doesn't live, it's not born, etc. That everything in the world is simply a projection that has not left its source in the mind. It is a projection of the ego thought system. And if the ego thought system consists of the thoughts, of the ideas of separation, and then sin, guilt, and fear, the outcome of our guilt, the inevitable outcome or punishment for our sin, is death, and that is what we fear. Certainly we're all familiar with the third chapter of Genesis, which gives a marvelous, mythic depiction of the birth of the ego. Adam and Eve separate from God's will by disobeying his injunction not to eat of the tree. They then feel that they have sinned. They feel guilty. They hide in the bushes out of fear of God's punishment. They cover their nakedness, which very, very quickly in Judaism and Christianity, especially in Christianity, makes the analogy between sin and sexuality. And they're afraid of God, and they hide because they hear God walking in the garden, and then of course God catches up with them, and he punishes them. And the ultimate punishment, a penultimate punishment actually, because he punishes them by bringing death into the world, a clear effect of their sin, and then he casts them out of heaven, never to return. Casting them out of the Garden of Eden, never to return, and forbidding them to return. And that's the ultimate punishment, of course. So we don't only die, but we'll never return home. And from that point on, we've had to deal with death. And what makes it particularly difficult is that deep down we believe that death is the inevitable punishment for our sin. And we all believe we are sinners because we all believe we are here in bodies with personalities, and that means we have separated. And to the ego, separation and sin are equated. And therefore we deserve to be punished for our sin, and since we have projected our thought of sin into the body, we therefore believe we are bodies, and bodies deserve to be punished. And once again, that's why the author of Genesis, or the authors of Genesis, put the Adam and Eve story right at the beginning. All right? And then, of course, it becomes the cornerstone of everything else that follows in the Bible, both Old and New Testament. And how do we deal with our sin, and how do we deal with the seeming fact of our existence, namely that we will die? So a big problem for all of us as students of the Course is this confusion of symbol and source. And it particularly becomes an issue, once again, when we consider our own demise, our own death, our own mortality. And we actually think that our bodies die. We actually believe that we lose. There's that wonderful passage in the introduction to chapter 13 of the text where Jesus describes what this wonderful world is, or the world we think is so wonderful, which he tells us is a delusional system of those made mad by guilt. And he talks about that one of the most insane thoughts in our thought system and our experience here as bodies is that we lose love. Love is taken from us. And certainly we all experience this because we all have people whom we love who die, beginning with our parents. And as we grow older, more and more people in our lives, family and friends, public figures die, and we mourn them. We feel there's been a loss, that we lose the love that we believe we had, and ultimately the love that we believe we are. And so this is Jesus' way of telling us how insane all of this is. Right? So this concludes the first part of our discussion of death, where we're really looking at the idea that death is not of the body, but is of the mind. So we'll continue this next week when we discuss what the implications of this are.